Good morning, everyone. Good morning, traders. Trust you're doing well this morning. If you can hear me clearly and you can see my screen, kindly type in hi in the comment section. This is just to ensure that we are on the same page. Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification, Carrie. Good morning. Oh, greetings, 628. All right. 737. Hi, how are you? Kishron. Okay. Okay, I'll take this as a confirmation that we can all see me live, clear, and very, very audible. All right. Once again, I welcome you all to yet another beautiful session of Extra and Speed Live with my humble self, Sheriff Daramola. My responsibility here is to take you on a trading journey where we shall be evaluating the market using price movement, such as trend identification, chart patterns, market structures, and we shall be using these parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us during the New York session. In addition to this, we'll also look at what we shared yesterday. We had some pairs we deliberated on yesterday. So the first thing we want to be doing, we want to be looking at how well these pairs are doing, and if there are advices or probably follow-up details that are required, I shall be sharing them during the session. And most importantly, if you have any pair or commodity you want us to look at, feel free to drop it in the comment section and I shall try as much as possible to squeeze it into my schedule for today. So I hope we are all on the same page and we are all pumped up and excited for yet another beautiful day. Okay, all 359, good morning. Are you quite early today? Glad to hear that. Glad to see that. Trust you're doing well. Okay, without further ado, we want to be looking at the first pair we deliberated on yesterday, which is the US oil. Did anyone take advantage of that bearish momentum that happened yesterday? Because we had how many pips move that is? Since yesterday we had about 300 pips move here on the US oil. During the course of yesterday's trading session, we had two scenarios we were looking at, and then I think we were around this area yesterday, that is around the key level here. Price is yet to break the key level here yesterday when we were looking for a breakdown of that key level, which also shares a confluence with the bullish trend line we identified, after which we look forward to a retest of structure and we look out for patterns on lower time frame to take advantage of that move to the downside. So if you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you. And at this point in time, what do we want to be looking at from this moment? Remember, during the course of yesterday's session, we identified our TP target at around between the $89 area and the $90.50 area. So what are we looking at this point in time? Where is price? Is price going to go to that target? What are the structures price action might respect during the New York session? And what are the things we want to be looking out for if we intend adding more position or joining this trade if you had missed out on that opportunity that presented itself during the course of yesterday's trading session. So now, as we move into the New York session, what are the things we want to be looking out for? The first thing we first of all observe here is this. We saw after this impulsive move to the downside, we saw our price came into the $94 area before we started seeing a scenario that looks like a consolidation phase before the outright breakout that happened in the early hours of today. Now, going into the New York session, we want to be looking out for structures that we're going to be using to guide our actions going forward. So the first thing I noticed here is this. After this impulsive move to the downside, we saw our price action continue to find higher lows at this point before we saw the sudden breakout. Now, what I want to be doing at this point is to identify and connect the series of higher lows at this point to give us a structure that looks more like a pennant. So after connecting the series of higher lows, this is what we're having at the, at this point. Let's extend this out a little bit. Okay, and then we have we have a structure like this, and we saw the outright breakout of that structure during the early hours of today. And one thing we all understand is this. After every breakout of structure, we normally look forward to a retest of structure to join the continuation towards the direction of the prior leading price action. So what's the prior leading price action at this point? Bearish. We saw a breakdown of that trend line in the form of this. Then we might want to be looking forward to a retest of structure to take advantage of a trend continuation to the downside at this point. So if we are going to be looking out for a structure that might be retested at this point, how are we going to do that? What are the parameters we want to be using to guide our actions in this regard? First of all, remember we have this bearish trend line which you can see on your screen, the red dotted line. Let me wave it a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Can you see? So we have this bearish trend line that has been respected in the last couple of weeks. So what I want to be doing at this point is to extend that bearish trend line to see how far that is going to guide us in the future. So what we want to be looking out for, the first thing we want to be looking out for is there a possibility that price is going to come back into this bearish trend line, after which we're going to be looking out for a reversal pattern to join the decline to the downside? Or is there a possibility that price is going to break out of that bearish trend line with a retest of structure to give us a signal that the trend is actually changing at this point? So we have two scenarios we want to be looking out going into the New York session. And as usual, I want to make our job very, very easy so that when the New York session starts and we begin to see structures lining up for us, we don't miss out on such opportunities, or we don't get caught up in a dilemma where we don't know what to do. So going into the New York session, the second thing we want to be doing after identifying that bearish trend line is to identify a key level that will guide our actions going forward. Remember, we had this key level at 96.5 area yesterday. I'm not sure if that key level is going to serve us today or for the later part of the week. But one thing for sure is that we want to identify a key level right below the previous structure. And if we look left, we can see that we have a structure around this area which has served as a demand zone. Here we have this area that served as a demand zone. We also have this area, and this area as well, which served as a demand zone before we saw the significant breakout that happened during the early hours of today. So you all know what we want to do at this point, considering the fact that we have identified that this area has been a major determinant of price action in the past. So the area at around $95.50 appears to be most appropriate to use as our yardstick going into the New York session for today. So one thing I want to be doing here is to connect the series of demand zone at this point. So we have somewhere around here. Okay, hold on a second. Sometimes I are right. Okay, we have it right around that area. Oh, sorry, is 95.5. So we have it sitting at right $99.5 area, and then we want to be extended this one out a little bit so that it can stand out from the structure we just identified here. Sorry, we need to label this $95.50. So we have a structure here at $95.50. So like I said, we already have a breakdown of that structure here. We have a breakdown of that temporary bullish trend line here, which gave us a signal of a bullish momentum, which we took advantage of. Remember, we have that move to the downside, and we want to see price do a retest of either the key level at $95.50 or probably go as far as the bearish trend line to look out for structures that will support a trend continuation to the downside. However, it is worthy to note that it is possible that price could go as far as testing the previous key level we identify at 96 level, which also shares the same confluence with the breakout. If you see this bullish trend line here, we can see that price broke that trend line, and there is a possibility that price will come back to retest that trend line before we see the downtrend move. So this is the scenario we want to be looking out for going into the New York session. And what we want to be doing here is to wait. Remember, like I always say, it is most appropriate that you don't take a trade at all than to rush into a trade and lose money. It's also important that we put in mind that we have been profitable on the US oil for this week. At least we've taken a couple of trades here on the US oil, and we've been enjoying that momentum right from the $102 area as price has continued to go in our direction. So what we want to do is we don't want to lose what we have already earned. So we need patience. So hereby patience is required at this juncture in the market, as we want to see how the market players are actually going to move. So we're going to be looking out for structures in the form of a retracement into this key level and bearish trend line before we can take advantage of a trend continuation to the downside. So our take profit target still remains the same at exactly between the $90 area and the $91 area still remains to be our take profit target, which dovetails to at least a minimum of 500 pips to catch if price retraces back into that key level. Now, the other scenario we could be looking out for is this. If price goes back into that key level, and at any point in time we observe or witness that price broke out of both this key level and that bullish trend line, and we saw a retest of structure in the form of probably testing this key level or the bearish red dotted line we identified earlier, and we saw patterns that support a trend continuation, then it is appropriate that we change our bias and look out for opportunities that will be a bullish momentum right into the selling opportunity zone we identified yesterday, where we will be looking forward to a reversal pattern that might send price crashing to the downside from this area. So we really need to be very mindful, as I have pictured two scenarios we might be looking out for going into the New York session. So it is appropriate we be on standby so that we don't miss out on such opportunities. And if at any point we don't see price coming back into this key level before that downtrend move, then I will suggest that we pass this trade unless we see something like a retest. We really need to see a retest of structure to give us that confirmation to join the decline to the downside on this one. But if you're already in this trade and price comes back and do something like a retest of any, it might not go as far as that key level, but if it price comes close to this area and we see a reversal pattern, you might want to add more position to your existing trade. So this is my scenario here on the US oil, and these are my expectations. And I would like to pause at this minute and let's see if there is anyone in the forum who still needs further clarification. Feel free to drop a comment in the comment section, and I shall be taking the 10-15 seconds to look at what your comments are. Is there anyone in the house who seeks further clarifications or any questions? Okay. Hmm. 359, trust in the process. Trust your, sure. That's the best thing to do. Okay. So let's move on to the 26. Okay, hi. Sammy, thanks. Okay. All right. So in the absence of no questions, I would rather move on to the next pair, which is the UK oil. So on the UK oil, we also have a similar scenario with what we have on the US oil, as we were able to take advantage of that bearish momentum that we projected during the course of yesterday's live session, as we saw our price broke down that bullish trend line, did a retest of structure. In fact, we had multiple retests of structure before we saw the outright breakdown to the downside. So if you are taking advantage of this move, kudos to you. That is, you took about how many pips that is? We took about approximately 250 pips minimum, and price has been trending to the lower side. So we have a rejection of that bearish trend line, which we are not sure if that is going to be valid, or probably price is still going to break this trend line further to the downside. Remember, our take profit target is still within the $94.50 area and the $96 area. So now, as we head into the New York session, what is going to be our intentions? Remember, we had a key level sitting at $100 yesterday. For the sake of clarity, let me just bring this out a little bit so that we can see it clearly. And going into the New York session, one thing we want to be looking out for to take advantage of a bearish trend continuation is that we want to be looking out for patterns in the form of a retracement back into somewhere around here, where we will be looking out for patterns on lower time frame that will support a trend continuation to the downside. However, how can I make your job easier during the New York session? So the next thing we want to be doing is to identify parameters that we can be using to guide our actions going forward. So the first parameter I'll be identifying here is this bearish trend line, which I would like to extend a little further. This bearish red dotted line, let me wave it a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. This line here. So I want this trend line. I hope this trend line is going to guide our actions going into the New York session, as we want to see price come back to do either a reversal pattern within that area or a sharp rejection of that level before we can join the decline to the downside. That is the first scenario. Then the second scenario, the second parameter is to identify a key level, as usual, that will guide our action. So for the sake of being precise, bring out our line chart, and then if we look left, we can see that this area here has served as a demand zone for a while before we saw the outright breakout of that demand zone. And definitely we want to be expecting price to come back into that demand zone for further confirmation to join the decline to the downside. So if this is going to be happening, then we have a key level sitting at which area is that? Let's see. I think $99 will be most appropriate, or should we put it at 98? I think $99 will be most appropriate here. Just $1 below the previous key level. So I want to be relabeling this. So we delete this one and give it a 99. So we having a $99 level to serve as our key level going into the New York session today. So another thing we need to understand here is this: we have been profitable on the UkOil so far this week. We took our move right from below this key level at $104 area, and we are presently running it about how many pips this week so far? Close to 700 pips this week so far. So we don't want to lose out on the profit we've already earned. So that requires that we need to be very, very patient, as we want to look out for further confirmations to join the decline. However, if you are already in this trade already, if you took advantage of the opportunity yesterday right from this area, I would be suggesting that you want to move your stop loss so that you can lock in some profits, and at the same time you don't get caught up in a scenario where price moves suddenly in the opposite direction and gets you stopped out in a loss position. So the thing I'll be advising for those who have already taken advantage of this move in the early hours of today, just move your stop loss to lock in some profit at this point, and let us see what is going to be happening from those juncture in the market from this area, as we hope that price will do a retest of structure before the trend continuation happens. So take profit targets to remain within that zone we aimed at yesterday, and let us see how price is going to play out. If price breaks down that tippy tide we have here, that is, if we see price break down that bearish red tick line here we see here, and further going to break down that tippy target, then a retest of that area, or probably that bearish trend line, could signal a further move to the downside on the UkOil. So at this point, I would like to pause the video here and run through the comment section and see if there are further clarifications needed. Feel free to drop in the comment section. I shall be taking the 10 to 15 seconds to scroll through the charts and see what your inquiries are. Okay, 9033 newbie here, you're welcome. Mario G, good evening. Okay, good morning. Van Dutch, hi. 903, glad to have you around. Unuronen, okay, good evening. All right, it's a morning in my place. It's morning over here. Sazwan, all right, good morning. How are you? You have any pair for us? 1279 is asking if we are going to buy US oil or sell. Well, I think I explained that a couple of minutes ago, where we are looking out for two potentials. Let me quickly take a look at that for you one more time. So on the US oil, like we said, at this point in time, we really want to be very patient, as we already saw a breakdown of that key level at 96.5 area, which also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line. That is giving us a signal that we are going bearish. We are going bearish, definitely. So one thing we want to be looking out for is we want to look out for the culmination of this impulse leg. Remember, we want to be very patient. When we see a signal, we don't want to get too excited, as we need to wait for confirmations to join the decline. So what is our confirmation at this point? Our confirmation should come in form of a retest of structure. It could be the retest of the key level at $95.50, or probably that bearish trend line, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. With our take profit target still sitting at around $90 area, we have about how many pips to catch? About 400, 500 pips to catch if price goes that way. Now, with the scenario we have here at this point that has been happening in the last couple of hours, we can see that this area is where price is at this point in time, and we can see that price has been finding it very difficult to break around this area. Hence, we have a consolidation phase. So when we have something like this, we want to be very patient, as this phase around this area could send price doing that retracement move we are waiting for before the rally, the decline to the downside happens. So what I'll be advising at this point is this: we want to be very patient at this point in time. We understand that we are on a bearish momentum. It's been a long-term bearish momentum, and definitely we want to be selling the US oil. But where are we going to be selling the US oil is what I've been explaining to you so far. So we want to be patient and wait for price to do a retracement back into either of the bearish trend line we identified earlier, or the key level around this area, or in fact price can go as far as testing that breakout structure, that is the trend line that was broken earlier this morning before we see the move to the downside. So what I'm saying here is patience is required. 279. I hope I'm very clear on this. So we need to be very patient to see that price is actually going in the perspective we are hoping it will. Then I also made a caveat here where I said if we see a breakout of that bearish trend line, also a breakout of that bullish trend line, then we should be looking forward to a possible change in direction, as a rejection of this area with a reversal pattern on lower time frame will send price going to the upside. So we need to be very careful. So we only want to be taking advantage of a bearish momentum right below at least the 96.50 area. That is, from this area downward is where we want to be looking forward to a bearish momentum. I hope I've made myself clear. 1279. On Coma, yeah, sure, it looks great to sell. Okay, you're welcome. 1279, glad to hear. All right. Okay, in the absence of no further question, then we want to be moving on to the next pair we deliberated on yesterday, which is the GBP Swiss Franc. That's GBPCHF. And we begin to see some traction this morning, but we are not yet sure how that is going to play out, as we're still looking a little bit bearish, despite the fact that we are looking for a bullish momentum here on the GBPCHF. Remember, during the course of last week's trading session, we took advantage of this bullish potential. We saw this bullish move last week. We took advantage of this move, and we saw since the beginning of this week price has been trending to the lower side, as we continue to see price do lower highs and lower lows at this point in time, which to me is more or less a retracement phase that we are waiting for the culmination to happen before we see the breakout of structure that will send price going to the upside. in the form of a trend continuation of the prior leading price action. So now, as we said in the beginning of the week, we had a key level identified at 1.16500 area, which I said is going to be our yardstick for this week. And we want to see price, as we are seeing, we saw price move up, price comes back down into this area. We want to see a breakout of that key level. We want to see, in fact, a significant breakout of that key level, a retest of structure that will send price going to the upside. And remember, our TP target still remains between the 1.8500 area and the 1.19 area, which will dovetail to how many pips that is, around 200 pips at least to catch if price moves as expected. Now, with the scenario we have here, hold on a second. I'm still saying that price is doing a retracement and we're still waiting for price to complete this retracement, and the only way we can know that this retracement has completed is if we see a bullish engulfing candle spring out of this key level at 1.16500 area. Remember, if we see a signal, we don't get too excited, as we want to be patient enough to wait for confirmations in the form of a retest of structure to join the rally to the upside. So this is how we expected to take advantage of that bullish momentum when it finally happens. I see something like a reversal pattern within this area, which is already forming at this point, and we want to see the breakout of that structure to happen. We have something like this. We want to see a breakout of that structure to happen. We want to see a significant breakout of that structure, a retest of structure with patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the upside. And when I say patterns on lower time frame, please remember what I mean is reversal patterns. We want to look out for reversal patterns, and your reversal pattern could come in form of a double bottom structure, an inverse head and shoulder pattern, it could be a rising wedge or falling wedge, whatever that is, and then we look at the breakout of the structure, a retest of structure, then we join the trend continuation to the upside. So it's a very simple setup we have here on the GBPCHF. And if you need further clarification, or is there an area here that you don't understand, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and I'll be willing to be of help to shed more light in that regard. So I'll be taking the 10-15 seconds to scroll through the comment section to see if there are any questions for me on this one. So okay, Winnie Wani, I hope I got that pronunciation correctly. Hello, good morning. (474), good morning. Hi, how are you? 20771, good morning to you. Someone wants us to look at Apple. Okay, I'll see if we can squeeze that into our schedule for today. Crypto 279 is seeking for crypto. Which of the crypto are you talking about? Kindly be specific so that I can squeeze it in my schedule for today. Okay, Bitcoin. All right, we'll take a look at Bitcoin. I would add it to my schedule. We'll look at it. All right, I think okay. Bitcoin appears to be a popular demand in the house. We already have 3 people requesting for Bitcoin. Okay, we'll look at it after we look at the pairs we deliberated on yesterday. So moving on, we'll move on to the GBP New Zealand, where we're expecting a bearish momentum, but this bearish momentum appears not to be coming as expected. We have, hold on a second, let's see what we have here. So we have this breakdown happen, breakdown of our key level at 1.94 area happened during the course of the week. We've been seeing a consolidation phase around this area, that is between 1.95 area and 1.935 area in the last 72 hours. We've been seeing this consolidation phase happen. Hold on a second, let me so we've been seeing this consolidation phase happen within this area, and at this point I'm beginning to be very skeptical of the potential of a bearish momentum here. However, it's also important that we realize that we're still right under that bearish trend line that we identified during the early hours of this week. And one thing I want to be looking out for at this point, though I'm in this trade, but I'm running in profit presently on this trade. Sorry, I'm running in loss presently on this trade as prices back above my entry level, though I'm not yet stopped out. I have my stop loss around this area. So since we are still below that bearish trend line, one thing I want to be looking out for, if you are joining me in this trade anyway, you will also be in loss at the same time, but there's no cause to panic. We want to wait for price to come back down. One thing I want to be looking out for at this point is this, to come back now. If you can see what happened since the beginning of the week, we can see that this level at 1.93500 area has been rejected multiple times. We saw how this area have been revealing how the buyers are very, very strong from this point. You can see every time price comes into this area, we always see that move to the upside every single time it comes there. However, we cannot also ignore the potential of that bearish trend line, as every time price comes into that trend line, we normally see a sharp rejection of that level. So one thing I want to be looking out for here for further confirmation is that if we see an outright breakdown of this level, which has been a support level in the last 72 hours, I want to see a further breakdown of this level, after which I get a signal that now sellers are now becoming more emphatic in the market, then a retracement into structure with patterns on lower time frame that support a trend continuation should welcome another position to be added to my existing trade on this one. However, if an outright breakout of that bearish trend line happens, this is what I'm talking about. If we see an outright breakout of that trend line to the upside, and price does a retest of structure, probably a retest of that bearish trend line, or could come as far as testing the key level at 1.94 area, then a reversal pattern on lower time frame will support a trend continuation to the upside. So this is my scenario here on the GBP New Zealand. Though I'm still expecting a bearish momentum, but I will be waiting for price to come below the 1.935 level, where I'll be looking for a retest of structure to add more position to my existing trade. And our take profit target is where we have a take profit target sitting at around 1.90750 and 1.91500 area, which dovetails to how many pips? That is almost 250, close to 300 pips to catch here if price moves as expected. So this is my scenario on GBP New Zealand. We're still waiting for that move to the downside. We're still waiting for that break below the 1.935 area to give us further confirmation that our selling momentum is valid. So are there any questions in that regard? If there is none, so we can move on to the next pair. Ocean 65, hi, you're welcome. Azimbao, okay. Resalto, hello. All right. So that is that on the GBP New Zealand. So we're moving on to the USDKK that Wadia introduced to us yesterday, and let's see what's happening. It appears the the US dollar is gaining some traction since the early hours of today, and though we had the breakdown of that key level, we had that breakdown happen. We saw the breakdown of that key level. We saw price coming back, but didn't do a retest of structure, but it went as far as testing the double top area we identified yesterday at around 1.7, no, 7.44 area. And we might be seeing price come back down from this area to push price to the downside one more time. However, if the US dollar continues to gain the traction, the momentum it has been exhibiting since the early hours of today, then a breakout of this level, hold on a second, a breakout of this level would negate the double top pattern we identified yesterday, after which a retest of structure should send price going to the upside from here. So if we are going to be doing that, then we should be having our take profit targets using the previous impulse leg here from this area. We have this impulse leg here. We extend it into the future. Hold on a second. If we extend it into the future and using our Fibonacci extension tool, we should be aiming at a 127.2 1414 area at least, at a minimum, for our take profit target, which will dovetail to, let's see how many pips that is right from above this level. That's around 570 pips to catch here if price move as expected. So this is the update on USDKK. I hope Wadi is around to see what I just talked about here. So then we are moving on to USDJPY yesterday as well. We talked about USDJPY as well yesterday, where we were seeing the same scenario with that which we have on the USDKK. And boom, we already saw that bullish momentum. We saw the breakout of that reversal. We identified this reversal pattern yesterday, but we saw price break out of the structure to negate that reversal setup we identified. Then what are we going to be looking out for? We want to be looking out for a retest of the structure to join the rally to the upside. So one thing we want to be doing now on the USDJPY is to remain very, very patient, as we want to look out for a retest of that structure to join the rally to the upside. This is a long-term perspective anyway, so you want to wait for price to come back into that key level, then you join the rally to the upside. However, if you are a scalper, let's see if there is an opportunity on lower time frame. Okay, we have this move right now. We saw this impulsive move to the upside. Price rejected the 139.400 area. Price came back down. We don't know how far this is going to go. Is it going to break above this level, or probably is it going to be the new high, a lower high? And if it's a lower high, then we have a double top structure where we'll be looking out for a breakdown of structure, a retest of structure to give us a signal, a confirmation of a trend continuation to the downside. So if this ends up to be a reversal pattern, then we have our neckline sitting right at around 138.700 area, where we will be looking forward for a breakdown of that structure, a retest of that structure to push price to the downside here. So that is that on the USDJPY, and which could dovetail to, let's say, how many pips that, at least a minimum of 85 pips, and if it moves as far as going into our key level, then we should be having at least above 150 pips to catch if price moves in that direction. But if we have an outright breakout of this level above this area, then a retest of structure should send price going up. So these are the scenarios we are looking out for here on the USDJPY, and I'm of the opinion that the USDJPY appears to be gaining too much traction lately, and it's always it will be very risky to be selling the dollar at this point. So what you want to be looking for on the dollar is to be looking for a bullish momentum on whatever pattern or whatever market structure you are analyzing at this point in time. So this is the scenario we are looking out for on the USDJPY, and then let's quickly go into the BTC USD, which has been the majority in the house. So let's run BTC USD. I think we had a scenario on BTC USD last week. No, is it last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess? So give me a moment, please. Let's allow this chart to load up. All right. In the last 2 weeks, we identified a level. I think this is no longer a key level anymore. Let's call it a key level. So we have a key level at $20,000, which is expected to guide our actions. Oh, hold on a second. I always like my golden level, my key level to be golden. So that is why I'm doing this. Let's go to the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, what is it what we have here? We have a temporary bullish trend line, which you can see after this impulsive move to the downside here on the 4 hours time frame. We saw that price has been respecting that bullish trend line since on the 18th of June, and at no point in time we saw price closing below that trend line until the later part of last week trading session, I guess, or is it the early hours of this week? And then we saw price come back above that bullish trend line. So if we look closely into what is happening around this area, let's scale down to a much lower time frame to see what is happening here. Okay. As soon as price tested this level at $22,500 area, we saw this impulsive move to the downside and price coming back into the bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. We saw our price did this. Then we had something like this, something that looks more like an inverse head and shoulder pattern, where we saw a breakout of structure, which also shares a confluence with the key level at $20,000 area, and price appears to be coming back into the bullish trend line. So what we want to be looking out for is if price could come right back above that key level at $20,000 area, we want to be buying the Bitcoin. But I think the buying of the Bitcoin is going to be short term at the moment, as we want to be looking at a take profit target within the golden zone area. And where is our golden zone area? Our golden zone area is between the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg. So remember, we have an impulse leg here. This is our impulse leg. So we want to be running our Fibonacci retracement tool through that impulse leg. And then we want to aim at a 50, between the 50 and the 78.6% as our take profit target if we are going to be buying the Bitcoin. So we have between the 50, hold on a second, let's give this yellow. So I will be labeling this TP target for buying opportunity. Am I clear on that? Okay. So let's place it right in the center. So we'll be deleting the Fibonacci retracement. So what we want to be looking out for is this: if price comes back above that key level and does a retest of probably one more time or on our lower time frame, then we want to be looking to take advantage of a bullish momentum into this area, which will dovetail to how many pips that is, at least a minimum of, let's say, 9,000 pips, and it can be as far as 17,000 pips to catch here. So that is the scenario we're looking at for the BTC USD. So we want to look at price right above our $20,000 mark to take advantage of a bullish momentum. And if we are going to be looking forward to a sell momentum, then definitely we want to wait for price to give us a significant breakout of the structure, a retest of structure, and that retest should be right below the key level, which also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame, where we'll be looking out for patterns on lower time frame that will support a trend continuation to the downside. So I've made our job easier. And how have I done that? We identified a key level at $20,000 area. If price rallies right below the $20,000 area, that is, if we see a breakdown of that bullish trend line, this bullish trend line we identify here, hold on a second, this bullish trend line, if we see price break down that bullish trend line, then we want to see a retest of structure to join a decline to the downside. However, if price continue to oscillate right above that bullish trend line, we want to see price go above the $20,000 mark and do a retest of structure on your lower time frame. Look out for patterns on your lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the upside. It could be a trend continuation pattern, it could be a reversal pattern that supports a trend continuation to the upside. So that's what we'll be looking out for on the Bitcoin. For me personally, I'm still thinking that the tendency for a Bitcoin to go significant bullish is still very slim at this point, as the possibility, considering this bearish momentum, price could come into this area before we see that breakdown of that bullish trend line. So let's see how price plays out based on the structure we just identified here. And if you have questions, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section in that regard. I hope I'm clear on this one. Okay. I hope 279 is still in the house, and this book, I hope is still in the house to confirm. How much is the bullish trend line? I don't think I understand what you mean by how much is the bullish trend line. This is the bullish trend line here. How do you mean how much? Please clarify what you mean by how much. Let me look at that. That's the bullish trend line here, the green line you have here. And so what do you mean by how much? Or do you mean how far the bullish momentum is going to go? If that is what you are asking, then I just identified between the $20,700 area and the $21,800 area as a potential area for take profit target if we have price rally right above the $20,000 mark. Okay, you are welcome, 279. So on this note, let's quickly do a recap of what we talked about today, and then we call it a day. So the first pair we deliberated on today was on the US oil, and we talked about we analyzed the US oil on the 1 hour time frame. And I first of all give kudos to those who took advantage of that bearish momentum that we identified yesterday. We saw that breakdown of that bullish trend line, and we're expecting, like I told you, we don't know how price is going to react to the $94 mark area, which is around here. And there is a possibility that price could do a retracement from this area into the key level we identified around $95 area or $96 area. after we should be looking out for patterns to support a trend continuation to the downside. So that is the scenario we identified here, with the take profit target sitting at between the $89 mark and the $91 mark area. We also emphasize the possibility of price coming into the selling opportunity zone if we see price break above that bullish trend line, do a retest of structure, come into this area before we see that move to the downside. So our expectation on the US oil still remains bearish. So we are waiting for a retracement move, a retest of our structure before we join the decline to the downside. And the other thing I mentioned, for those who are taking advantage of this bearish momentum right below the $96 mark this morning, I advise you all to move your stop loss, at least to break even, or to lock in some profit if you wish, so that you don't get caught up in a sudden spike that might happen at this point in time. Then we moved on to the UK oil, where we also share the same and similar scenario with the one we have on the US oil, where we identified a key level at $99 area. We have two parameters here to make our job easier. The first one is the $99 mark area, and then we have this bearish trend line, the red dotted line you can see on your screen. I'm waving it right now. So we have that red dotted line as our second yardstick, as we want to see price come back into the zone and then look out for patterns that supports a trend continuation to the downside. Our take profit target still remains between the $94 mark and the $96 mark. So let's see how price plays out during the New York session, as we want to see price come back into a critical level where we could take advantage of a trend continuation to the downside. Then another scenario is the possibility that price could come up. Probably price will continue to break out of that bearish trend line. So one thing I want to be saying here is this red dotted line. If price breaks out of that bearish trend line, if we see a breakout of the structure, a retest of that structure could push price back into the selling opportunity zone we identified on Monday, after which a reversal pattern could push price further to the downside. So if you're a counter trend trader, you want to buy this pair if you see a breakout of that bearish red dotted line on your screen, and then using that as a guide going forward. Then the next pair we deliberated on is on the GBPCHF, where we're still expecting a bullish momentum. We have a reversal pattern. We have a key level holding 1.16500 area, where we're expecting price to continue to the upside from this point. So we're still going to be very patient on this one. Let's wait for that bullish potential to come up before we can take advantage of any bullish potential here on the GBPCHF. Our take profit target remains between the 1.18500 area and between the 1.18500 area and the 1.19 area, which dovetails to about how many pips right above our key level, around 200 pips to catch if price moves as expected. So for the week, if price does not move further to the upside, we are going to pass this trade. Then the next pair we deliberated on was on the GBP New Zealand, where I'm still expecting that bearish momentum to happen here on the GBP New Zealand. Like I told you, we saw how important this level at 1.935 has been since the beginning of the week. We saw anytime price comes into this area, hold on a second. Anytime price comes into this area, it gets rejected by the buyers, and anytime price comes into this area, it goes rejected by the sellers. So what this simply means that we are caught up in a consolidation phase, but the fact that we're still under the bearish trend line here is still giving me hopes that price is still, there's a possibility of price still going further to the downside is still very possible. But with the position running already on this one, I'm running in the loss. Like I told you earlier, we're waiting for price to come down to break this 1.935 level to give us that signal that sellers are finally taking over. Then remember, we don't get too excited at the sight of a signal. We want to see a retest of structure with patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the downside to join that decline. Now, if we do see an outright breakout of that bearish trend line, then that is a sign that the trend is about to change. And if that happens, we want to wait for a retest of structure, probably on that bearish trend line or on the key level at 1.94 area, where we want to be looking for a reversal pattern to join the rally to the upside here on the GBP New Zealand. So that is the scenario we are looking out for on the GBP New Zealand. Then we went on to discuss about the USDKKK, where we identify a double top pattern here yesterday, but we saw a breakdown of that structure, which some people might have gotten excited about, but unfortunately price did not do a retest of structure. It went up and up back into where the double pattern we identified yesterday happened. So now the tendency, based on how the US dollar is gaining traction in the early hours of today, I'm of the opinion that we might be having a breakout of that structure, and if we do have that, then this reversal pattern here, will be negated. So if we have a breakout of that key level, we negate the reversal pattern, then we wait for a retest of structure to join the rally to the upside here on the USDKK. So then after that, we moved on to talk about the USDJPY, which also has the same scenario with that we have on the USDDKK. And one thing we realized here is that price finally broke out of that structure we are looking forward to yesterday. So we are waiting for price to come to do a retest of structure before we see the rally to the upside. Now, in addition to that, we went further to go to the lower time frame, where we looked out for possible opportunities for short-term traders. And that is, I said something here that if this level, if price does not break above this structure, then we might be looking forward to a reversal pattern, and this is a short-term trade. We might be looking forward to a short-term which looks more like this. We see this move to the upside here. Price comes down here, and if we didn't see a breakout of the structure and we see a sudden breakdown of this neckline at 138.700 area, then that's a signal that we are going bearish. So what we want to be looking out for is a retest of structure with patterns on lower time frame that supports a trend continuation to the downside. So our take profit target for this could be around this area at 137.800, or it could go as far as 136.800 area, which will dovetail to, let's see how many pips that is, 94 and 200 pips that is. So that is only if we don't see price break out of this area. And if price breaks out of this area, then we want to be looking for a retest of structure to join the rally to the upside. So that's that on the USDJPY. Then we went on to talk about the Bitcoin, which was the last pair we deliberated on today, before we call it a day. So on the Bitcoin, we identified a very strong key level at $20,000 mark, and we want to be using that level at $20,000 mark as our yardstick going forward. Now, what we want to be looking out for is this. We saw something that looks like a reversal pattern here on the time frame we have here, and we're looking forward to a breakout of structure, retest of structure to join a rally into the TP target zone, which we have identified around the $20,700 mark and $21,700 mark. So if that happens, we want to be taking advantage of a bullish momentum right above the $20,000 mark. However, if we see a breakdown of that key level, which also shares a confluence with bullish trend line we identified on the daily time frame, a retest of either of the structure with potentials that supports a trend continuation to the downside, if that happens on lower time frame, then we want to be joining the decline to the downside. So these are the scenarios we have here on the BTC USD. We were able to talk about, how many pairs did we talk about today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we shared about 7 pairs today. That's, we have quite a lot of opportunities lining up for us during the New York session. So I wish we all be on standby to take advantage of the setup lining up during the New York session. And please remember one thing I used to normally say: don't get too excited at the sight of a signal. You want to wait for your confirmations to happen before you join any potential rally or decline. And also remember, it is better you don't take a trade at all than to jump into any trade and lose money. So on this note, I want to thank you guys for being with me today. I really appreciate every moment I shared with you guys. You really have been wonderful. And as the New York session comes in, I wish you the best of luck.